Hello, my name's Derek Bailey. I've been a wood turner now for over 40 years off and on, and I've been teaching for the last 8 of them. Today's project, we're going to make a tea light holder. It's quite a simple thing, straight sided, but we're going to use the indexing jig that I'd done on a previous video to produce the holes on the side. We'll be using, it's designed basically for the battery types of tea lights. If you want to use the flame type, then I'd just use the one for each. We're going to make a stackable set of 5. But if you're going to use normal flame type tea lights, then I recommend you stand alone and just expose the flame to the atmosphere. Whereas because they're stackable, the flame could be underneath there and is an obvious fire risk. So the wood that we're going to use today is spalted beech, which is what we call a punky wood. It's been allowed to rot in the ground, and the fungus has formed on the end grain and worked its way up through the branches of the timber, and which can leave a very attractive feature. Pencil marks, etc. When I say pencil marks, the lines that is produced by the fungus look like pencil marks, and the changes in colour of the grain can be quite distinct, and changes in overall colour as well. And it's a very attractive wood when you put a finish on it. But there lies the problem. Because it's a punky wood, it's very difficult to get a good finish, particularly with the scraping action that the carbide tip tools produce. You would normally use the normal tools, the normal wood turning tools, which create a slicing action and give a better finish. But while I use those carbide tip tools, which is ideal for beginners because there's less skill value incorporated, I do alter the position of the tool, which you'll see in the video, to achieve a better cut. Anyway, that's enough waffling. Let's get on. I'm going to hold the wood in a chuck, but not using the chuck jaws, but using a wood screw which is 6mm diameter. So I need to measure the solid bit beneath the thread of the screw to determine the size of drill. Therefore I need a 5mm drill to suit a 6mm screw. As usual, I make a cross, drawing a line from corner to corner and drilling a hole in the centre of the cross. Here, I don't really need to use the centre punch to create a dimple in the wood. I could have just used the point of the brad point drill for that. I'm measuring the screw to establish how deep I need to drill the hole, and then I'll test the hole depth by using the depth gauge part of the digital caliper. When drilling a hole for the wood screw, make sure that you drill the hole in side grain, not end grain. End grain cannot grip the screw very well. The back of the chuck jaws are designed specifically to accommodate the screw. Most 4-jaw wood turning chucks usually come with their own dedicated wood screw. I need to make sure that the wood tightens up against the front part of the jaws so that the wood runs as true as it can. As usual, I'm converting the square block to a round cylinder using the square carbide insert tool. I'm using the round carbide insert to make my final finishing cuts. At this point, I tilt the tool about 30 degrees to create a slicing action which achieves a better finish. Notice how the shavings are different with this procedure. They form a ribbon. It can be quite difficult to get a good finish on the open grain nature of spalted beech due to its various stages of decomposition. The maximum size of the cylinder is 58 millimeters. This diameter will be made consistent throughout the 4 tea light holders. You can make the size of your tea light holder any size you want. This is the first of the 4 tea light holders that will be fixed to a base. The following turning methods will be consistent throughout the 4 tea light holders. I'm now going to make a recess about 38 millimeters diameter. By using the inside diameter prongs of the digital caliper, I make a slight mark on the downward rotating side of the cylinder with the left prong. I'm using the right prong to sight that line. I then make more lines until the right prong matches the final line. I do not touch the upward rotating wood with the right prong. I then emphasize the final line with a pencil. I'm using 2 Forstner drills to make the recess for the tea light. Unfortunately, the lathe power isn't strong enough to use the larger of the Forstners in one go, so I use a smaller Forstner to start the hole. I'm using the small Forstner to determine the depth of the hole, but remember to deduct the length of the point on the front of the Forstner and finish off with a square carbide tip tool. Using the larger Forstner, I now drill to the depth achieved by the smaller Forstner. You don't really need Forstners for this operation. You could use the straight carbide tip tools for boring out the wood. It's just that it's easier to set the depths using the Forstner bits. With the square carbide insert, I'm now blending the two Forstner marks together at the bottom of the recess. I'm now going to increase the diameter of the recess to accommodate the base of the tea light. I'm squaring off the end of the wood to prevent a gap forming when the tea lights holders mate together. After squaring, I'm just checking to see if I haven't reduced the depth of the tea light holder recess. And now I'm going to make a spigot 4mm wide. I've set the outside calipers to 46mm diameter, which will be applied to the spigots of all the 5 tea holders. After just removing the slight feathering, I'm now going to tidy up the diameter of the tea light holder by inclining, as previously shown, the carbide tool to create a better finish. I'm checking the finished diameter, which should be 54mm. Again, this will be consistent through 4 of the tea light holders. Now I've finished turning the top part of the tea light holder. It's down to using the abrasive to 400 grit. You should always wear a face mask when using abrasives, particularly on rotting wood or semi-rotting wood like spalted beech, because of the spores that sometimes they give off, and spores like nothing more than a damp lung to live in. Now I've finished using abrasives, it's back to the good old sawdust just to burnish the finish. For safety reasons, always use a tissue. It tears far more easily than a rag. Cellulose sanding sealer next, followed by 3 coats of melamine lacquer, remembering to burnish between coats with sawdust. There's both a negative and positive side of putting a finish on your work. The negative side is the torn grain is more highlighted, but the positive side is it brings out all the colours and the beauty of the grain. I will now unscrew the wood from the screw chuck, take the screw out of the chuck and reverse the wood back onto the 4-jaw chuck using the recess I've just made. Later I decided to increase the size of the recess to 38mm to match the bottom of the tea light holders. This was due to the fact that when I start to drill holes using the indexing attachment, I would be drilling through thicker wood than I need to. I'm now creating a small recess 4mm deep to accommodate the 4mm long spigot of the next tea light holder. And so on to the next block, and I repeat this process for the next 3 tea light holders. Using the previous tea light holder, I now use that as a gauge to make the next tea light holder, so the two mate together. After hopefully making 4 identical tea light holders, I now concentrate my attention onto the base. Here I'm just creating the spigot part of the base, which will then be assembled with the other 4 tea light holders and finally turned to the required shape when they're all together. Here I'm checking 4 of the tea light holders to see if I've made the recesses deep enough for the tea lights themselves. If you want to know how to make the indexing jig, please refer to the link in the description below. I set the indexing disc to 12 divisions, highlighted in blue on the disc itself. As you can see, I've marked 2 lines along the circumference of the tea light holder to indicate where the brad point of the drill needs to be located. Being the typical plonker that I am, I'm actually drilling at the bottom of the tea light holder and not at the top, so I had to make another piece off camera so the whole thing goes together properly. However, the principle's still the same and you should get a gist of what I'm trying to achieve. By releasing the grip of the chuck jaws, I can slightly rotate the tea light holder independently of the indexing disc. I then rotate the holder by half the gap distance between the present drilled holes. I can then position the drill on the second line I drew in order to drill the second row of 12 holes. Here I heard a slight crack, and I noticed I'd just split the wood slightly in one of the holes when I tightened up the jaws against the wood. Super glue would soon fix this problem by putting the glue in whilst the gap was at its biggest, and then releasing the grip of the jaws, allowing the gap to close and the super glue to do its work. Because I noticed slight differences in diameters in individual tea light holders when they were put together, I thought, I'll decide to return the whole lot as one so that they're all running true. So whilst I was paying attention to the base and refining the base details, I decided to turn the whole lot as one object, which I really should have done in the first place. I'm creating a convex curve to blend the larger diameter base with the smaller diameter tea light holder using the round carbide insert. Here I'm creating a couple of beads using the diamond shaped carbide tip tool and the square carbide tip tool. Using normal traditional wood turning tools, I will find this a lot more efficient and quicker to achieve, but for this demonstration and for beginners demonstration it is still possible, but it takes a little bit more effort to create beads. I'm using liquid sanding sealer here, which isn't advisable in a way because it tends to globulate round the holes. Fortunately I got away with it, but later on when I'm finally touching up the work, I used spray can for this operation. Using sawdust here became quite amusing, as the revolving holes in the side of the tea light holders created a shrapnel type of environment, which was quite strange. Notice that I'm applying the sanding seal and the finish while the lathe is stationary. I haven't switched the machine on. The result is it gives time for the sanding seal to penetrate the fibres of the wood. The temptation is to switch the lathe on and do it while it's revolving, but it doesn't help. As you can see, there's a lip on the topmost tea holder. That was because it was against the chuck, and I didn't want to use the carbide tool against the metal chuck, so I took it off, put it in the chuck and removed it. I got a little bit lazy here and used spray sanding sealer and spray melamine lacquer to speed things up a bit. Here I'm gluing in an insert that I made off camera so that I can create a spigot in the base of the tea lights holders and not a recess, which I'd done previously. The result being, the only way it could be assembled would be by placing the tea lights themselves upside down in their holders so the light wouldn't shine through the holes. I'm using the tailstock here to act as a clamp to push the new insert into the base of the tea light holders. I'm using the square carbide tip tool to just bore out the insert so that a T-light can be inserted. As you can see, I've tilted the square carbide tip tool to one side because the thickness of the tool was too large for the hole, and the bottom of the tool was binding on the wood, not allowing the edge of the carbide tip to come in contact with the wood. Even though I've been turning for over 40 years, I still get into bad habits. I should have took the tool rest out when I'm sanding. It's just a case of touching up with some spray can of sanding sealer and a spray can of melamine.